Hi, Rhema. It's week 16, day 5 of our Bible narrative reading plan. Today we're in 1 Samuel chapters 9 and 10. We saw yesterday that Israel has cried out to God saying, we want a king like the other nations around us. They've asked Samuel. Samuel has reported this back to God, and God has said, yes, I will allow this. And so the scene shifts at the end of chapter 8, and at the beginning of 9 we have the story of this young man, and he's out hunting for donkeys, and it's just a common thing taking place. And we're told what this man Saul looks like, a handsome young man. Chapter 9 verse 2, there was not a man among the people of Israel more handsome than he. There was not a man among the people more handsome, and from his shoulders upward he was taller than any of the people. So he's handsome, he's good looking, and he's tall, and that's what they're looking for. There's nothing internal that is mentioned. There's nothing about his ability to lead, nothing like that. It's just his appearance. And that's going to be a repeated theme throughout this story of Saul and David. The people are looking at his appearances. And so through God's guidance, through God's providence, Samuel and Saul eventually meet, and God confirms to Samuel that God has chosen this man Saul to be king. And at the beginning of chapter 10, Samuel anoints Saul. It's a private anointing because later the people are going to publicly affirm that he is going to be their king. But Samuel has already understood from God that Saul is the one who would be king. We see that they dine together, and that Samuel gives him the choicest part of the meat. The leg would have been, by law in Leviticus, been reserved for the priest, who is Samuel. But Samuel gives this to Saul, recognizing and affirming that God has anointed and appointed Saul as king. And so the story continues there in chapter 10. Saul is told that God's Spirit is going to rest upon him. Now again, this is the Old Testament, so this doesn't necessarily mean salvation, but it means that God has set him apart for a specific purpose. And when God's Spirit comes upon Saul, it's going to be noticeable to everyone else. They're going to think he's a different person. It's as if he is acting differently. It's because God's Spirit is resting upon him, anointing him for this new task. And so that's exactly what happens. And the people that know Saul do say, why is he acting so different? And it's because the Spirit of the Lord is upon him. But then in the end of the chapter, the people, the tribes of Israel, they're called together, and they're going to recognize that that Saul is king now. And Samuel is announcing all of this. He's calling all the tribes together. But notice what happens in chapter 10, verse 21. It says, when they sought him, that is Saul, he could not be found. And so they inquired of the Lord. They prayed, and they said, where is he? And God says, he's hiding in the baggage. He's hiding. Here's this king. He's more handsome. He's taller than anyone else. He's by all appearances what they're looking for in a king, and nothing's even happened yet, and he's hiding. Now it could be that yes, the weight of responsibility is sinking in, and he's scared. But this is going to come up again later. He's not quite the king that they think that they're looking for, But as soon as they find him, the people affirm him, and they say, long live the king. This is the king they've asked for, the king like the other nations.
For more information, go to tunemyheart.org.